So, remembering the healthy female cycle, now let's talk about peri to post menopause. I've still got this bit pinned, but I'm going to come back to it. So, what we have is puberty, estrogen and progesterone rise. In this diagram, our estrogen is turquoise and the progesterone is blue. And then they track along quite merrily, as they're supposed to, track along quite merrily in our fertile years. So, from sort of puberty onwards. And there's always a little bit more estrogen and progesterone, but what I want you to think about is ratio. There is the right ratio of estrogen to progesterone. Then what happens in this perimenopause place? But I also want to highlight that the beginning of perimenopause statistically starts at 36. Now, that means there are going to be outliers. There's going to be people where this starts at 27. There's going to be people where this starts at 42. Statistically, the average is 36. So if your doctor is saying you are too young for hormonal imbalances, it's not true. And what you can see is that progesterone falls off a cliff. This is really important. Estrogen stays the same. So what's happened is my ratio of progesterone to estrogen has changed. Now, this tends to be called estrogen dominance. We prefer to call it what it actually is, progesterone deficiency. But estrogen is tracking along as it should be, actually for potentially many years, because estrogen only starts to fluctuate as we start to go through the menopause transition, which is when our periods start changing. Now, that might be not until our late 40s. Some people early to mid 50s. So we could have been in this perimenopause progesterone deficient drop-off place for 10, 15 years before our estrogen starts to go crazy and all over the place and fluctuates, and then it too drops off. That's how that should be. But the bit that we're interested in is this ratio of progesterone to estrogen, because, and this is a very important bit of information, if you go to the doctor and you are in your 40s, but your periods haven't changed yet, they know you're perimenopausal, but what they will do is they will give you HRT that is an estrogen and a progesterone. The problem is you might not need it yet. Now, if you're under 45, they will still give you a blood test. They often don't test progesterone. Don't ask me why. If you're over 45, they won't test at all. So you're taking estrogen and progesterone, but the problem is you're estrogen dominant. So we have got this big blind spot in the medical world around progesterone deficiency. And then when we give women both sets of hormones, we're not making the situation any better. Yes, you're getting a bit of progesterone, unless you're put on a synthetic HRT, all hell will let loose there. But we've still got too much estrogen. And that's the bit that we need to be looking at, is how do we change this estrogen dominance profile?